Hi, I'm Nathan and welcome to Ninja Monkey, the place for all things related to Japan. I do the research so that you don't have to, and I put all the readily available information into one place. So if you're a potential tourist, student, or simply interested in visiting for business, you've come to the right place. I might not have all the answers, but hopefully my updates will help you make informed decisions leading to answering the question, when will Japan's border open? Wait a minute, I know the answer to that question. So keep on watching. This is the big one. I've been at work all day, so unfortunately unable to update you as quickly as I wanted to, but Japan is opening its borders as from Monday. Okay, maybe I need to repeat that because it's hard for me to believe what I'm saying, but Japan is opening its borders as from Monday. But there's a catch, more about that later on in the video. Anyway, in this video I will be going over a number of important points, so it might be worth getting a pen and a paper ready to jot down any points of interest. And as always, all sources are included in the video description for your own reading. So the Japanese government has finally announced that it will finally reopen its border for short-term business people and students starting this Monday. And to clarify, according to the recently updated Ministry of Foreign Affairs website, short stay is categorized as less than 3 months and long stay more than 3 months. It's been a long journey with many of you stuck in your home countries for multiple months, even before January when the government tightened restrictions on entry into Japan in response to the appearance of COVID-19 variants banning all new arrivals other than those with special circumstances. But all this is about to change, even if it's a little slower than I had hoped for. Unfortunately, tourism will remain closed for the time being, but team, this is a great step in the right direction. Not only is this welcome news for many students and others watching this video, but even if you're a tourist, this spells the beginning of hopefully a complete reopening of the country and might give insights onto how things might progress for how tourists are welcomed in the future, so it's still worth a watch. There are, however, some rather interesting contrasting restrictions depending on the type of foreign entry for the time being. Although Japan will finally lift the entry ban for business people, students and technical trainees, currently even those who have been vaccinated are required to stay at home for 10 days after entering Japan, but this is changing for business people, shortening the period to 3 days. This is therefore expected to bring a boost to business activity in Japan. So, if you are a business person who is fully vaccinated with one of the vaccines that Japan has approved, which are Pfizer, Moderna and AstraZeneca, the mandatory self-isolation period will be slashed to a minimum of 3 days. And if they test negative on the 3rd day, they will no longer need to quarantine, but will still need to follow their activity plans for the next 7 days, which are submitted beforehand to the government. Unfortunately, international students, technical trainees and those intending to stay for long term will surprisingly need to quarantine for 14 days regardless of vaccination status. Unvaccinated arrivals or those inoculated with unapproved vaccines will still also be required to undergo quarantine for 14 days either at a designated facility or an accommodation of their choosing depending on where they are arriving from. Japan will also relax quarantine measures for returning Japanese and foreign nationals. Currently, vaccinated returnees need to quarantine for 10 days, but it will be reduced to as little as 3 days, with some exceptions for those returning from certain countries. Team, it's a little bit confusing why a 14-day quarantine is set for students and long-term arrivals regardless of vaccination status compared to short-term business people and re-entry, which are able to have the quarantine reduced to 3 days if they are vaccinated. I don't know, perhaps it's because it's harder to track a large group of tourists instead of the smaller amount of business people. I really don't know why this is the case, but I am hopeful that this will be cut down even further in hopefully the near future if the business entry scheme works out well. But what I do expect from the many comments I've read in the last few months is that this is welcome news for students and that the majority are more than happy to quarantine if it means getting to Japan and being able to continue on with their lives. Team, it's also important to note that more information continues to slowly become available and clarity will likely continue in the coming days, so stay posted for any future videos and keep an eye out on my YouTube community tab Twitter and Instagram, as I tend to post shorter info pieces on there too. An article in Nikkei Asia states that the easing of measures are conditional upon the receiving organizations taking steps to make sure that the visitors follow the protocols for infection prevention. The organizations include businesses and universities. These institutions must draw up antivirus plans and submit implementation plans to relevant regulators, such as the industry, education, or farm ministries. The Nikkei Asia article continues to state that currently tourists are not covered under the relaxed rules and that the government will assess the effectiveness of the measures within the year and consider whether to expand the scope of the relaxation in stages while monitoring the state of the outbreak. Team, I am trying to make heads and tails of the wording within the year. I'm going to be totally honest with you, and I'm not sure if this means before 2022 or in the next 365 days. What are your thoughts, potential tourists? Team, we must take particular notice to the Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Seiji's remarks, saying at a news conference on Friday, if the situation worsens, such as with the spread of new variants, we will take swift action. He added that the government will continue to give positive consideration to the possibility of future easing. So students might be asking themselves, what might happen if their COE is expiring? Well, according to the Immigration Services Agency of Japan, it seems that COEs will be extended and that certificate of eligibility for students and technical interns that were issued after the 1st of April 2021 will be extended until the 30th of April 2022. So this is good news for those if you're worried in this area. However, students must also note that it seems that entry will be prioritized depending on when originally applying. Applicants from April 2020 will be able to enter in November this month, whilst April 2020 to October 2020 applicants will be allowed to enter in December, and April 2020 to April 2021 applicants can enter in January 2022. Any other applicants, as from July 2021 onwards, would need to wait for further information and will likely be unable to enter until after July 2022. Team, I'm going to be honest, a lot of this doesn't make sense to me personally, as I believe quite a lot of students from back in April 2020 have already given up, and the number of students potentially wanting to enter from back then will likely not be a lot. The way things currently stand now means that not many students will be able to enter in November, and is unfortunately not what I wanted to report. However, we must remain positive, team. Japan is opening up, and we did expect it to be in stages after all. I just wasn't expecting students' entry to be staggered to this extent. I know that there are people like David Rossi who work hard for students, so it's always worth checking out his content too if you're a student. As for technical interns, if your certificate of eligibility was issued between January the 1st, 2020 and June the 30th, 2020, you will be able to enter this month, November. If it was issued between January the 1st, 2020 and December the 31st, 2020, you should be able to enter in December. And if you were issued a COE between January the 1st, 2020 and March the 31st, 2021, then you will be able to enter as from January 2022. All applicants after March the 31st, 2021, similar to students, need to wait for further instructions for entry in the future. So team, there is a lot to unpack here, many dates, many numbers. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Are you excited or feel disappointed in the way Japan is opening its borders? So, what should you do next? The very first thing I would recommend is that you contact your place of study, institution or sponsor. It's important to note that they need to be in compliance with government policies, and that according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website, the receiving companies and organizations will need to pass screening by the ministry and agency having jurisdiction over the business in question in advance, and should be responsible for supervision of their conduct. So, it's best to check if your organization or sponsor has indeed passed the ministry's screening. According to the newly updated MOFA website, which has actually been updated whilst I was filming this video, those who are newly entering Japan for short-term stay, which is less than 3 months for business or working purposes, or newly entering Japan for a long-term stay, will be needing visas newly issued by embassies or consulates or consular offices of Japan. To apply for a visa, you will be needing to submit the required documents to Japan's overseas establishments in your country or region, And please note that there are some cases where Japan's overseas establishments requests additional documents. After the application has been successfully accepted, the visa would be issued at the Consular Affairs section of the Japan's overseas establishment. The visa should be received by the applicant or his or her representative and is needed upon applying for landing permission. You will also be needing a copy of the screening certificate from the appropriate ministry agency and the visa application documents. All of this information has been taken directly from the MOFA website, and I recommend that you read yourself or ask any questions directly to your institutions or companies, as they will likely have clearer instructions and know your case personally. So team, great news in a way. And tourists, keep calm, keep positive. And those entering soon, please remember that you are the lucky ones that have been able to enter and that others might still be waiting patiently. Therefore, please conduct yourself in the best possible way, take on all possible antivirus measures, and be a good example so that the Japanese government and people realize that we are not a threat. Anyway, I will continue to report on any updated news and intend on continuing my weekly updates for the time being, as things are always changing and becoming clearer, and there's still a wait for tourists after all. So, thanks for watching. If you've watched this far, it must mean that you're liking my content so far, so please consider subscribing and becoming part of Team Ninja Monkey. Like this video and share the information in other social platforms. Till next time, keep positive team. Gracias, arigatou gozaimasu. Thanks, bye.